Hi everyone. In today's video I'm going to show how I made this palette. It's the Peerless Watercolors by the Jane Davenport collection, and I'll put the link below of where you can purchase your own if you like this. I have a video that's going to follow up this intro that explains how I made it, but I'm not sure if I explained the measurements very well. So I wanted to include this first so that you can figure out how to measure this to fit inside of your Midori Traveler's Notebook or maybe a Fodori that you've purchased off of Etsy. So the Midori Traveler's Notebook inserts measure 11 centimeters across. You may see the millimeter measurement online, which is 110 millimeters, or in this case 11 centimeters. So your ruler might be easier to do centimeters since we have that in the US. So you'll want to make sure that when you cut your cover that you make it within that measurement. Now when I made mine, I cut out a front cover and I cut out a back cover. I don't leave them connected because I like to use my laminated portion to be my fold. That just seems to work better for me. It seems to cut down on the bulk. So that's how I cut that. And then for the length measurement, I want to say it's 8.25 inches, but the centimeter measurement will be, on mine, it's a little over 21. The actual is 22 inches, but I make it a little bit shorter because I want about 1/4 inch off of the top and 1/4 inch on the bottom so that my book is inside of the notebook. So that's why I made those measurements the way I did. So I hope that is a little bit more clear on the measurements. I used a gold clip that I had just to hold it shut. And then one other thing I didn't include in the video afterwards was I do also put a piece of washi right down the center after I staple it. It just kind of hides the ugly staples that are on the inside spine. So on here now I have the report cover material right here. I also have it in front of this section, and then I have these in the back. And of course the staples don't go through because I laminated it after I did the staples, so it's actually smooth, and I can use this as a palette as well. So that's how I did my Peerless Watercolor portable palette to go in my Midori Traveler's Notebook, and I hope you enjoy making your own as well. Thanks for watching. This particular collection of the Peerless Watercolors has 60. And I've actually made one before. So let me show you the one that I made before because I don't think I ever recorded it. The first one I made was actually in this small photograph book. You'll see it says photograph right here in the corner. This actually fits in with the Hobonichi Techo, which was the size planner I had a couple of years ago. So what I did was I just took the photo book and I cut out watercolor sheets that would fit into the photo sleeves. Then I stapled those watercolor sheets into the photo sleeves, and then I took my scissors and I just cut the photo sleeve down the side. That way each piece of watercolor area has a plastic sheeting over it, so that when they get wet, they don't muddy up into other colors. For example, if I turn the page here, you'll see I have 5 on this side and 5 on that side. And if I didn't have this protective sheeting here, they would muddy each other up. So they work as a self palette if you wanted to kind of thin out your color, but it also provides protection against them mudding up each other. So on this one, all I did was I took the original rectangles. The original rectangles come in this packaging right here, and they're about 2 by 2 inches or 3 by 2 inches, somewhere around there. And I just cut off a strip, and then I used my water brush to smooth out to show what the colors look like, because some of these, the actual paint block doesn't look anything like the real color. So it's good to do a test color so that you can really see what they look like above each strip. So I made this one and it worked great. I grouped most of the colors pretty well together, the blues and the greens, reds, oranges, and yellows. And I used it a little bit. Who ended up using it a lot more often is my daughter. So I did end up giving this one to her and she uses it all the time. But I do want one for myself. Now I'm going to be converting to the Midori Traveler's Notebook because I want to be able to carry my Hobonichi weeks in it. I have used that one since the beginning of 2016, and if there's a word of planner piece, I have found it with the Hobonichi weeks. It's light, it's small, I can carry it with me wherever, but if I want to carry more with me, I can tuck it. It will fit inside the Midori Traveler's Notebook. So I've decided to make this color palette to fit inside of that notebook so it can come with me and be portable. So in order to do that, I'm going to need to make my own cover, and then I also need to attach the colors onto a paper palette. Now the one I'm using is just thick cardstock. This is the Georgia Pacific cardstock that I found at Walmart, and all I did was print it out on my inkjet printer, and this is actually a file, I will link it below, that you can get at janedavenport.com. She actually makes it to go with the 60 colors. So I'm going to make one palette that is exactly this size. All I'm going to do is put all 60 colors on here. They fit, there's 30 on one side and 30 on the other, and this is a great size to have at home to use. But I'm also going to make a portable palette that will fit in this size of the Traveler's Notebook. So let me show you what I used so far. So when you get your Peerless, they come in this packaging like this. This will be wrapped around these rectangular blocks. You'll see on these rectangular blocks, I have cut out some banners, and I've also cut out a 1-inch circle. So I used my Martha Stewart 1-inch circle punch for those, and I used my American Crafts flag 1-inch punch. I found this one at Target for the little banner ones. So this design is going to go into the one that will be in my Midori Traveler's Notebook. This is going to be the design that'll be in the palette that I make for the one that's going to stay at home. And you'll see I still have enough of a strip here that if my daughter runs out of color here, we can still refill her book with plenty of scraps. So technically we're able to make almost 4 palettes out of just one set of these Peerless. So all the extra scraps I'm just saving in this little package here so that we can use them later if we want. So I punched them all out, and as I was doing it, so I wouldn't lose any pieces, I put all the circles into one Ziploc, and then I put all the pennants into or banners into another Ziploc. So after I printed it out, you'll see this is quite a bit bigger than what will fit in the Midori Traveler's Notebook. So what I'm going to have to do is trim this one down. I've already scored it and folded it in half on the line that was provided with the template. But all of these boxes are not going to fit. So I cut my cover out already so that I could see how many of these boxes would actually fit. So to fit all of them, I can fit 4 by 6. So I can fit 24 in my cover. So I'll have 24 and 24, so this will be 48. And then I'll flip it over and I'll have the remaining 12 on the front of the inside cover. And that'll be okay because I'm actually laminating my cover, so it'll go on top of it and it'll act like a palette on the inside. So this I'm leaving white so that I can use it as a paint palette and that it won't interfere with the colors and I'll be able to see what I'm mixing there. So I'm going to trim this down so that it will fit inside of here. Now you'll see here's the size of my cover here, and then when I've folded it, this will fit perfectly inside of this cover. There'll be a little bit of edge for both sides, which is good because again, we're dealing with watercolors and you know, I don't want them to leak onto the other books or anything. So this is just the right size to go on the inside. So now I decided I want to decorate the cover. So I have some ephemera that I've picked out for these covers, and we'll put the cover together and then we'll laminate it. So before I put these on my actual palette, I'm going to lay them out on a scratch piece an extra piece that I had printed so I can group the colors together. Now if you ever took a basic art class, you might have learned the term Roy G. Biv, which is red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. So that's kind of the way a color wheel is arranged. So I'm going to take these and kind of group those. We won't follow it to an exact science, but kind of follow that color theory. On the back of the Peerless, you can kind of see the color. If you look at the front, there's no way you'd be able to tell that that is supposed to be peacock green. But on the backs, you kind of can. So I'm first going to arrange them by the backs. That way I can get a general idea of where I need to group these colors. So now that I've done all the swatches, you can kind of see that this one, I thought it was going to be like a black, but it turned out to be more of a blue, so I'll move it over. These neutrals, all of these browns, and then all the ones that are like blacks and grays, those are going to go onto the first page because those are kind of my neutrals. And then on the inside pages, it'll have the red, orange, yellow, blue, and green. So now I'll actually move them into the palette. I'm going to attach them by using my red line tape from Ranger, and I'll just put a little bit into each rectangle and then move over my flags onto this particular insert. Since we're in the process of moving, my transparencies are packed away somewhere. I have no idea where they are. So I went to the dollar store and they had 3 of these report covers for $1. So I'm going to use one of these covers and trim it down to use it as my plastic sheeting to go between all of these layers. So I still have my neutrals that I need to put on here. What I've done so far is I cut the plastic sheeting of that report cover to be the exact height of the inside of my color palette. I'm not going to trim this yet. I'll show you how I do that later because I want everything to be more flush after I complete the cover. So we'll get to that later to trim it down. For now, we're going to leave it just like it is. But when I flip this over, I still need to add my neutral colors. The problem is I don't know if you can see it real clearly, but since this is cardstock, the watercolor does bleed through a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another sheet with the squares just like this onto the back of this sheet so that you don't see any of those spots or anything like that through it. So I'm going to trim down another sheet that was identical to this one that I can layer on the back to put my neutral colors. So now that I've finished the inside, I'll go back and do my finishing touches on the exterior that I had glued together earlier. Now, how this is going together is I need to put it in my laminating sheet this direction. That way, this center will be my fold. So I'm going to have a slight gap in there in order to allow it to fold more easily. That's why I didn't leave this as one big cardstock sheet. The spine will have enough thickness already because of the watercolor booklet and the plastic sheeting that's going on the inside. But for a little touch, since most of the notebooks have the rounded corners, I am going to use my Making Memories corner rounder and just make sure I do the right corners. I want to make sure I don't round the ones on these insides, but instead I want to focus on the ones on the outside. So now I have completely laminated the cover, and you'll see it came out great. I'm sorry the color probably isn't great. I'll have close-up photos tomorrow when it's daylight again. But it covered it really well. This is an 8.5 by 11 sheet of actually the lamination is a little bit bigger. It's big enough to cover an 8.5 by 11. So I think it's closer to 9 inches for this direction, which is perfect for the Midori Traveler's Notebook because the total height should be about 8.5 inches. Now the tricky part is the width. So that conversion comes out to here it is. I already did it on my phone. I don't know if you can see it. 4.331 inches. So in other words, it's about 4 5/16 of an inch. And so there I have come close, but I did not cut the lamination off of the edging of here. So now all I'll do is take my scissors and my paper trimmer and trim around all these other edges. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to anchor this in place. There's a neat little stapler that I found at Daiso. And this thing is great. It looks like a regular stapler, but actually this white section right here turns. What that allows you to do is to staple on the binding without your stapler going the traditional sideways direction. It will go up and down. So I'm going to put my binding here, and I'm going to go ahead and let it bend a little bit. That way I can see where I'm going with this stapler. And you'll see the stapler put it right there. So we are on the inside and it's the correct direction. So now we're going to do another one down here. Now what I'm going to do, since these are just staples, since I didn't sew it, I am going to go ahead and use some more red line tape for this section here. Since I don't have any watercolor palette on this side, I'm going to red line tape this right into here so that it secures it even more, and when it opens, it just opens right to the watercolor palette. But that will still leave my back page and this one available to get in and out of. And I can use this as my back palette. And the last thing to do is I'll just hold this up and I'm going to trim with my trimmer the rest of this plastic off of the edge.